Time to Wonder podcast, a behind-the-scenes peek into the world of museums for kids of all ages everywhere. Hi, I'm Ava.
Hi, I'm Leslie.
And I'm Sue.
And this is a podcast where kids ask questions about museums.
And we find the answers.
Today's guest is Megan Jerry from the Siksika Nation in Alberta, Canada. She has a background in archaeology and museum studies. Her passion is expanding her knowledge of Blackfoot history and their ways of life. She is a museum tech and collections archives assistant. She helps her coworkers and community members access historic documents and artifacts.
As well, she handles all the artifacts that have been returned through repatriation, as well as donations from private collectors.
Welcome to Time to Wonder podcast, Megan. We have many questions to ask you today, Megan.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Can you say your Blackfoot name and tell us what it means?
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to say Oki Damix Ganotani and Nistu Anagok Utske Monisiaki. So I just said hello, good morning. My name is Blue Otter Woman. So my Blackfoot name, Utske Monisiaki, was given to me by a local elder here named Herman Yellow Old Woman. He gave me this name after his first teepee design. I guess he just kind of saw the determination I had within me to learn and expand my knowledge of our Blackfoot ways and history. So I was gifted this name at our annual celebrations it's called the Akogots, and it's kind of like our New Year, but it's also called Circle Camp that we have every year.
That's very cool.
Were you always passionate about Blackfoot history?
Yeah, I always had an interest in our history since I was a young child. You know, I participated in powwows. I learned beading and crafts from my parents, and I started learning the language through my dad. And I always just kind of knew where I came from, so I always had the interest in learning more, this eagerness inside me. So I began archaeology in my university years, and then I started getting more into the cultural aspect of our history and who we are today. So I started looking more at everything through a Blackfoot lens, and so I am here that I want to promote and instill to the younger generation that our culture is so rich and it's still here, and we're still doing things the way we have done hundreds of years ago, and we are such a strong, dynamic people, and I find it so amazing.
That is really cool. Did you go to a First Nation school?
I went to school in Calgary, and I went in Siksika as well, some college.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called Old Sun Community College.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Where do the Blackfoot people live, Megan?
So we live all over Alberta, southern Alberta, and into the United States, into Montana area.
Oh.
And before contact, we were very nomadic people, so our territory expands from Alberta all the way towards the Rocky Mountains, and then down into towards North Saskatchewan River. And so the Blackfoot Confederacy makes up about 4 individual tribes into one confederacy. And, we all share like the same language, the cultural similarities. So the confederacy makes up the 4 tribes of Gana, Siksika, Piikani, and Amskapi Piikani. And that's towards Browning, Montana, to the border.
Wow, that's a really big area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Where's the Blackfoot Crossing Historic Park?
So we are located in Alberta here, in Syilx Nation. So If you're coming from the closest city would be Calgary, so that's an hour east drive from the major city, and we're just located off the Bow River. And then we have our hereditary Chief Crowfoot's gravesite here at our Blackfoot crossing within our park, and we have his last teepee site here, as well as the monument of Treaty 7 when it was signed. Yeah.
Why did your nation decide to build the historic park?
Well, it came as a vision and wishes from our elders at the time. It was built in 2007, and it was in an area that had so much history and so much significance to our people. And it was a vision for them to have a place or to preserve our heritage or culture and store our artifacts and have them accessible for our nation members as well as the public and visitors all over the world. And I think it's an awesome place and for our future generations to learn from.
Now, you talked about the historic significance. Can you tell our young audience a little bit about the historic significance?
Not too far from our building, this is where the Treaty 7 was signed in 1877. And so we consider this place very important to us Blackfoot people. So many people during the time in 1877, the tribes would come from all over to come and be here for this historic moment. So it's important.
It's very different from British Columbia, where many of our First Nations are living in unceded territory, like Avis.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Do the Blackfoot pass down belongings from generation to generation?
Well, from my own experience, I think we have passed down belongings through my family, and we want to pass them down to younger generations. But it's just not belongings as well, but we also do pass down teepee designs on teepees, painted teepees, symbolism, and our beadwork and designs, and we also pass down our traditional names that have been given to us. We can pass them down to our children. So I think that's really cool.
That is
super
that
cool.
is really cool.
This kind of reminds me of how in some knitwork in Scottish areas, they might pass down like charted knits,
Yeah.
The way you guys are talking about the beadwork. That's super cool.
Yeah, it gets transferred down.
Where and how did your people keep their special belongings?
Well, just like today, we have our houses, but back in long time ago, we kept our special belongings in our teepees, I guess. And families would often hang the items from the teepee poles or keep them in a safe space towards the back of the teepees. So teepees were kind of like our traveling house because we were such a nomadic people, always constantly, hunting and searching for buffalo. We would always be on the move. So teepees were a good way to just get up and move camp really fast. So often we would keep like some special belongings in what today would be called a briefcase or a bag, but back then we would call them sutsiman, which translates to parflesh bag made out of a hide of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Now, when you say you were nomadic, were you even nomadic in the winter?
Oh yeah, always. I was always in the chase of our food supply, right? Whatever. Yeah. So hundreds of years ago, this land that we lived on was just filled with bisons, thousands and thousands, and you can see it in our landscape. There's buffalo jumps, buffalo corrals all over throughout our landscape, and you can just being here, just you can paint the picture in your mind of what it was like for our ancestors so long ago.
How do items get to your historic park?
So, a lot of our items that come through, when we first started opening, they came from donations from other institutions like the Glenbow, the Ram, and then they also come through public donations. I get calls from people almost every other week saying they have an item. Yeah, like they have an item that they think is Blackfoot and that they've grandma gave to them years ago. So, we get a lot of those, hey, and a lot of them are their willingness to just give back to the community and they do that through, I guess, their solidarity with First Nations people. They want to do something like that. I find a lot of our donors, and but also through we have a collections committee that we also help. They do some research and try and get some items in our walls here at our museum, and so a lot of them is through repatriation with help from even our chief and council down here. So it's awesome. We all work together, to bring back these items, which I think is really, really cool.
We hear there are Blackfoot belongings in museums around the world. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, there is. There's tons of Blackfoot items all over, like in the United States and all the way to in England. And back in 2013, I think they started speaking with Exeter City Council, and they made a discussion or a plan to get these items back. I think it took all the way till 2020 for the city of Exeter to make a vote to return some of these artifacts, which was our Chief Crowfoot's shirt and a few other items. And so they finally returned on May 25th, 2022. So this is really awesome because, we view these items as living things, and we feel this connection when we are with them. So I just feel it feels good to have them back. And like during the settlement era, like many explorers and historians, ethnographers felt the need to document or acquire these items with this goal of preserving or historically documenting. I mean that in quotations, but we know, like we are still here, and still making these same type of items today. We are a living, breathing culture that still thrives and exists today. We haven't disappeared. We're here, along with many other First Nations communities throughout Canada, which I think is so awesome. And we're not just in the history books. We're still here.
The belongings got to Exeter in England?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did they get there?
We repatriated a shirt and the belongings from the hereditary chief Crowfoot, and he was the signatory of the Treaty 7 in 1877. So in Exeter they had a shirt, deerskin shirt, and leggings and a bow and a knife and a bear claw necklace. And these items I guess were purchased or given to him. I'm not too sure. He was at the time RCMP member, and his name was Cecil Denny, but I think he was a translator as well. And I think his sister sold these items to the museum in Exeter for just £10.
Oh,
Yeah. So like when these items returned, it was like we were bringing a spirit back home with it,
Yeah.
It's and it helps with the process of healing and connecting to your ancestry. And when these things come back, I always tend to think about the kids in the community, and having them see these type of things brings a positive energy and something good with the identity. I guess that Cecil Denny was friends with Crowfoot back then.
Okay.
So
wow.
yeah, so with the help of our staff and our local knowledge keepers and elders and curators at the time this was able to happen. It was like over 10 years that we were waiting for these belongings to come back. So we have them here at the Blackfoot Crossing and they're on display when we have an exhibit just for Crowfoot.
Wow, that's great. You opened up this podcast by speaking in your language. Could you just give us some Blackfoot words for, say, things like hello and goodbye?
So a really easy word is in Blackfoot would be hello, and it's oki.
Okay.
Oki. Yeah. And there is no word from growing up here. There hasn't been a word for goodbye. It's just,
Oh,
yeah, it's always just see you later. It's kita kiramatsin.
Oh,
oh,
that's hard.
that's hard.
And but there's to say your mom and dad would be na'a for
No.
mom, and dad is na'a sa.
Oh,
So it's quite similar. The fun ones I like to teach often are the animals because um, they're easy and my kids always just have this connection with animals, I find. So
Mm.
it's like for instance, wolf would be makoi. Bee is namu, and imita is dog.
What dance category originates from Blackfoot country?
Oh, the dance is called the Gitoki Baskan, or in English it would be prairie chicken dance. This dance originates from Blackfoot country, and it basically is a dance that honors the prairie chicken springtime courting dance. This dance is done by males in the
Yeah,
community.
I've seen it.
They wear porcupine hair head roaches. They sometimes wear breechcloths of different materials and colors, and most of them wear bells on their ankles that make a lot of sound. And they wear bustles that imitate the prairie chicken made of feathers on their back.
yeah.
Really theatrical. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so like the dancer mimics the male prairie chicken's distinctive movements during like mating season, and it's supposed to honor the animal and the story that comes along with it. There was a young Blackfoot man who went out hunting and encountered these prairie chicken birds, and they were all dancing in the long grass in the prairie. And the young man was so hungry and needed something to eat, so he took out his bow and shot one of the birds to bring home and feed his family. So, and later that night, that man, he had a dream, and that bird spirit came to him in that dream and asked, "Why did you kill me?" And the man replied, "Well, I need to feed my family. We are starving and hungry." So the prairie chicken then told the man that it was going to teach the man a dance that then must be taught to all the people to honor and remember that life that was sacrificed. And if the man did not do as instructed, the bird promised he would return and take that same man's life in exchange for one that had been lost.
Whoa.
So,
Whoa.
so as a result, the prairie chicken dance is considered sacred for all, and it teaches that, who dance it, that life is so important and that we must respect, all living things.
Can you tell us about your people's relationship with the buffalo?
Yeah, our whole relationship with the buffalo, everything was surrounded over the buffalo. Like, it was very intertwined. Wherever the buffalo roamed, we followed them. We depended on them for shelter, food, tools, like the thread sinew for clothing. So every part of the buffalo was utilized, nothing went to waste, from the hooves to the horns, and even the lining of the stomach that we used for boiling pits. Yeah, and then we used the horns for, utensils. And then, of course, the skin was used for when it was super cold, you could use that fur.
Mm.
And clothing and moccasins, they dry the hide and make some nice clothes and some good moccasins. And even the tail was used for whips or like even a fly swatter.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
And then of course then we would use the meat and we would use everything. Everything would be utilized. Nothing went to waste. So and then we would dry it, and also we would make pemmican. So that was kind of the meat. Dried meat was squished with berries, and then you could make them into patties, and then it could be stored in the parfleche bags. So those were kind of like our Ziploc bags of the time back then. So yeah, we would use it to preserve it.
Is there anything, Megan, that you'd like to tell the young audience about your history or about your museum before we finish today?
Oh, well, first off, I just want to say thank you for having me. And it's been such a pleasure to meet you guys and chat with you all today. And I really thank you for being so interested in learning about me and my people, the Nitsitapi and the Siksika Nitsitapi people. That's what we call ourselves. But I just want you guys to come visit sometime. And
Thank you, Megan, for being with us today. You've given us a lot to think about.
oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to part 2.
in episode 7, the big question is, are those mummies real?
Our guest is Gail Gibson, who is an Egyptologist who worked for many years with the Royal Ontario Museum.
She will talk about the mummies in the Royal Ontario Museum, including the mummified cat.
We have lots of questions for Gail, so please join us for episode 7. Thanks again to today's guests. Our music was written by Kevin MacLeod and is licensed under Creative Commons. For complete information, see our blog post at timetowonderpodcast.com.
For more information on this episode, visit timetowonderpodcast.com.
If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe. Remember, next time you go to a museum, look, listen, and wonder.